Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Today's webinar presentation is going to be covering managing change. This could be a change in ownership, change in inventory, change in accounting practices, or all three. So let's dive right into our topics for today. Great. So just a bit of an overview of what we'll be talking about today. We'll start with some introductions. Then we'll look at an overview of how we address change, some recommendations that we have from our sales team, support, and training. We'll look at access and security surrounding RoomKey PMS and Windows domains and Windows logins. We'll also talk about your different interfaces, any third-party integrations with RoomKey, as well as payment processing. We'll take a look at how room types and inventory can be managed on those platforms and in RoomKey. We'll also talk about transaction codes and accounts, how you can manage those in with mindfulness, considering any integrations you have with RoomKey as well. Then we'll wrap up today's presentation with a summary and Q&A. So just taking a look at our introductions for today, my name is Tasha LeClaire. I'm a trainer and implementation specialist with RoomKey. Joining me today, I do have our Director of Customer Experience, Mr. William Dam. I'll be leading today's presentation and the demonstrations on screen, and William will oversee the chat and Q&A features inside RoomKey. If you do have any questions as we're going through our presentation, you can use the Q&A button to ask a question. Just type it out like a normal text. We'll be able to answer those via text or live during the presentation. Any questions that we're not able to answer throughout the presentation, we can always include in that Q&A section at the end. Couple more things about today's webinar. It is being recorded, and a copy of that recording will be made available on our support website later this week. For those of you that are joining our live presentation, we do have a webinar survey. We appreciate any feedback that you are able to share with us regarding your experience attending a live presentation and any suggestions you have for any future webinar presentation topics. Okay, so let's dive right into a bit of an overview managing change. So I just wanted to open up our presentation with a bit of a disclaimer. If you are a hotel owner and you are considering selling your property and you want to give access to the RoomKey database to a new owner, or if you are a new owner yourself and you have recently obtained access to an existing RoomKey PMS database with authorization from the previous hotel owner, we need you to contact our sales team directly. You can reach them via email. Their email address here is insidesales@roomkeypms.com. You're going to want to reach out to our sales team because we do need to update our contact information for who has rightful access and ownership of a RoomKeyPMS database. So like I said, if you're an existing owner and you're selling, we need to know who the new owner is going to be. Or if you've recently obtained access, we do need to update our records as well. Our sales team is actually going to give you an overview of what needs to be changed or what interfaces, contract information needs to be updated for our records, as well as offer support in the form of one-on-one training from our training department. So that is really important for new owners or existing owners looking to sell their property here. So when it comes to a RoomKey PMS database, we help you manage the RoomKey PMS database itself. We do also consider things outside of the database, things like security that could be helping you secure your access and login information, which we'll be looking at in a little more detail in our presentation today. In addition to just RoomKey software itself, we also have integrations that are associated and managed by our RoomKey PMS team. This could include our payment processor integration, RoomKey PMS payments powered by Full Steam. It could also include RoomKey PMS eRes booking engine, a booking engine that can be used to direct business from your hotel website directly into RoomKey, allowing those online guests to make bookings directly from your hotel website. And if you are a property with owned units and working with an owner's statements and invoicing, we do have a RoomKey PMS Owner's Accounting or HOA component that can be used in conjunction with RoomKey. Our support team supports all of these components, and we will be taking a look at a couple of those in a little more detail a little bit later in today's presentation. Now, outside of RoomKey and our realm of support here, we also integrate with a variety of third-party vendors. Now, these could be vendors that could include GDS connections, they could be direct connects with Booking.com or Expedia, or they could be channel managers like SiteMinder. It could be revenue management tools or CRM tools, reputation management tools like Ideas, Revenate, anything like that. It could be accounting exports where we export data from RoomKey into your accounting software like M3. We can also integrate with point of sale or POS software from an associated restaurant or spa services that you have at your property. We can also integrate with hardware components like a key card maker that allows the front desk agents to make key cards directly from the front desk or guests at the hotel. And we can also integrate with some other types of hardware devices like a PBX controller, a call accounting and voicemail services. All of these vendors are managed outside of RoomKey, so you do need to have an existing account and login information. In some cases, like GDS or channel managers, they have portal access via the web typically. So these vendors are managed outside of the realm of RoomKey, but we do integrate with them. When you are working with taking over any ownership or transferring ownership from one owner to a new owner with RoomKey, you do also need to consider transferring the ownership of these third-party vendor accounts and services. So in order to help you along with this type of consideration, I do have a bit of an example checklist here. So for example, if you are doing a full transfer of a database, or if you're brand new to taking over an existing database, here is an example checklist of some of the things that you might want to consider making sure you have access to. Certainly, you want to make sure that you have access to RoomKey PMS. You need a download password, a user login, and password. You'll also want to make sure you have access to your credit card interface, knowing your merchant ID information, and in some cases, your portal login and password. If you're using any GDS connections, that could be including direct connects with Expedia, Booking.com. It could also mean a channel manager like SiteMinder or any form of GDS connected portals. You need to have access to the portal. So that would be the web access to the portal or the login site. And you need to have your login and password. Likewise, if you're using any of those revenue managers or CRMs, you do need to have portal access and your login name and password for those tools on the web. And when it comes to some of our other third-party vendors, things like a point of sale or POS connection, typically there's not a login, or you may not need to have direct access to the login for those. But what you will want to be mindful of when it comes to the connection with RoomKey is any POS postings or the transaction codes that are used to communicate between the POS and RoomKey. For example, a guest has a meal at the restaurant and the restaurant charges it to the guest account for their in-house account. You want to make sure you know what the posting or the transaction code that is used. Typically, it's just a restaurant charge that appears on the guest final bill in RoomKey. When you have a PBX connection, we want to make sure that you are up to date with the housekeeping status codes. These codes are what the housekeeping team will use to update housekeeping statuses directly in RoomKey via that PBX connection. When it comes to call accounting, similar to the POS, you need to know what the posting or transaction code is. So when a guest uses the telephone from their room, whether it's a local call or an international call, you need to know or be mindful of what that transaction code is in RoomKey, so how it appears on their guest final bill in their account in RoomKey. Lastly, if we're working with any accounting exports or accounting services there, it is important to know what your GL account IDs are. Now, not every accounting software requires GL account IDs, so we will be kind of taking a look at that a little bit later in today's presentation as well. Okay. So I did mention we'd be talking a little bit more about access and security. The first thing that I wanted to just kind of give an overview of is how to download RoomKey PMS. So quick reminder of how to do this process. We do have lots of support documentation available on our support website as well. But when you go to our support site, step number one is to access www.support.roomkeypms.com. Directly from our website, you'll see this download icon. It says Download RoomKey PMS, and you're going to need your download password in order to access this information. So if you're a brand new owner, you don't know what your download password is, again, contact our inside sales via email so we can help make sure you've got these initial pieces of information so you can download RoomKey. Once you've downloaded the file, it is called Install RoomKey PMS, and it kind of looks like this, depending on the type of download password and connection that you're using. But once you've downloaded the file, you'll open up the file and you'll just follow the setup wizard. It's going to add a shortcut to RoomKey PMS directly to your desktop. RoomKey is designed for Windows-based PCs. We do have a version that supports Mac operating software or iOS. So again, that's going to be determined by our side. So you want to make sure you're reaching out to our inside sales in order to collect that download password. Make sure you're getting the correct version for your operating system, whether you're using Windows-based PC or a Mac Apple product. Once you've downloaded RoomKey onto your device, you need to access RoomKey. So, like I said, there will be a shortcut just added to your desktop there. Now, every user requires a login name and password in order to access RoomKey PMS. And I have a little overview here of how to create a clerk ID. Now, if you are going through as a new owner or transmitting status ownership of a database from one owner to a new owner, our sales team is also going to be helping with this setup in conjunction with our training team. So we'll be able to create the ID for you. But if you're creating a new clerk ID or managing your existing clerk IDs, this will give you a bit of an overview here. So I've got a little video here that'll show you how to create a clerk ID. Starting in RoomKey from System Configuration, you'll select the Clerks menu. This is the Clerks module where you can click the Add button to add a new clerk. A new clerk must have a login name, first name, last name, and I recommend adding their initials as well. Now you'll also need to set up a password, so you'll just click this password button. And you'll need to follow all of these password requirements in order to stay PCI compliant. So we'll just add the password and confirm it there and click OK. Now the last thing that you need to do is designate a main user role. We recommend using the owner admin user role and select OK. So I have a new user that has been selected here. You can manage their permission settings on the Permissions tab, or we also have a copy and paste feature. So I'm just going to copy these permissions from the front desk manager and paste those permissions to my new user, Megan Parker. RoomKey will confirm when those permissions are successfully copied over. And if you do want to manage your permissions individually, you can click this Permissions tab. On the left-hand side and the right-hand side, you'll see lists of the permissions. If you want to give a permission from the right-hand side, you'll go ahead and select the permission and click the Give button. If there's any permissions you want to remove, you'll just select those from the left-hand side, locate the permission, and you'll click Take. Now, any changes that you make to these permission settings, you need to click Post in order to save those changes. One last option here is the ability to add an IP restriction. This will prevent a user from accessing, or this permits a user to access RoomKey from only one specified IP address or computer device in this case. You can add an IP address. You can add multiple IP address, but if you do not have any IP restrictions here, it means that the user can log into RoomKey using their login name and password from any computer workstation with RoomKey. So a bit of a quick overview there of how to create a clerk ID. Definitely check out our support website. We do have some more detailed information about all of those different permission settings, the user roles, as well as the security and department settings. Now, if you are taking over a new database or if you are managing your clerks inside RoomKey, if you need to remove a clerk, we do not delete clerk IDs. Instead, in RoomKey, we do deactivate a clerk ID. So when you deactivate a clerk ID, it's going to prevent them from logging into RoomKey after the deactivation, but it will not change any historical information or any reporting and activity that that clerk has performed in the database in the past. So it keeps that historical information intact, but does prevent the user from accessing RoomKey moving forward. So I have a video here that shows how to deactivate a clerk ID. Once again, we're going to start from System Configuration and select the Clerks module. Once this opens up, we're going to locate the clerk ID, and on the right-hand side, you'll click Modify. Now down below in the Status section, you'll place a checkmark in the Deactivate User checkbox and click OK. You'll see that that user now disappears from our list of active users. But if you wanted to see them, you can go over to the Show Inactive Users checkbox, and you'll be able to locate their user access clerk ID here. Now you can modify and remove that deactivate status if you want to allow them to use RoomKey once again. So that can be useful if you have any seasonal employees that maybe only work for the summer season and then you deactivate their clerk ID at the end of the summer, but if they return next summer, you can reactivate that same clerk ID. And that allows you to maintain seasonal hires without having to always create a brand new clerk ID for them each and every season. Great. So now that we have a bit of an overview of how to download and access RoomKey, let's take a little bit more of a deep dive into security. Now, outside of the RoomKey realm, you may use what's called a Windows domain to provide security for your network of devices at your property. High-level overview of this concept. Windows domains provide a network administrators with a way to manage a large number of PCs and devices and control them from one place. So that means one or more servers, known as a domain controller, have control over the domain and the computers on it. So in this example, we've got a domain controller and it oversees or maintains control over the front desk desktops, any printing devices, as well as any manager laptops. You could have several domain controllers overseeing several different types of devices within your network there. The main thing that I want to highlight here with regards to Windows domains is that a domain controller must be used in order to download and set up RoomKey on each computer device. So when you have a Windows domain structure, you cannot just download RoomKey and use RoomKey directly from a front desk computer or a manager's laptop. You have to have that download and setup process at the domain controller level because the process of authentication that we use for security within RoomKey takes place at the domain controller and not the individual computers. So in addition to downloading RoomKey, you also need to do the setup from the domain controller. And when I say setup, this includes setting up the registry tab, which allows users to send email from the PMS. That could include confirmation letters or copies of the guest folio at checkout. Setup also includes setting up the OLP tab. If you have an integration with a credit card processor, third-party credit card processing, this OLP tab must be set up on each computer within the domain to allow users to process credit card payments using that credit card interface with RoomKey. And lastly, you also need to set up your keycard tab. If you have a keycard interface like Miwa or Dormakaba to create keycards at the front desk, that setup needs to be done at the domain controller level as well. Now, another type of security that you might use at your property level is Windows logins. Now, we have two types of login scenarios that we like to make you aware of. In one case, actually, the most common scenario is that users share one login. So you might have two or three front desk agents. They log into the RoomKey PMS, or sorry, they log into Windows or they start the computer and they all share the same Windows login. That's the most common case, but it is the least secure. A more secure scenario would be each user having their own Windows login. So if you have one front desk agent, they're going to start up the computer at the front desk and log in with their own Windows login and then access RoomKey with their clerk ID information. And each user or each front desk agent is going to have their own Windows login and their own RoomKey PMS login. Now, depending on what type of setup you have with these Windows logins, it does affect how you are doing your download and setup process. So for that first common scenario where you're sharing Windows logins, RoomKey PMS is downloaded and set up onto one shared login. So you just have to download it once onto the computer. If you are using the more secured option, RoomKey PMS must be downloaded and set up on each login for each computer. So if you have one computer and three front desk agents, each with their own Windows login, you're going to download RoomKey three times, one for each Windows login there. Now, when I say download and set up RoomKey, of course, that setup does include setting up the registry tab to allow users to send emails from the PMS. It does include the OLP tab, which allows users to process credit card payments through the credit card interface. And it also includes setting up the keycard tab that allows users to create keycards from that front desk computer using those different Windows logins as well. Now, one last thing to note, if you are using both a Windows domain structure as well as separate Windows logins for each of your users, it is important to know that the domain controller must be used to download and set up RoomKey on each computer for each login. So that added level of security does ensure that your network does ensure that you adhere to those network and security requirements by your structure of your hotel. It does require some additional setup and additional steps as we've outlined here, but we are happy to help you kind of suss out that structure and help you make sure that you have everything downloaded correctly in RoomKey as well as set up in RoomKey there. So the next thing that I wanted to highlight, now that we've gone over quite a bit of information about accessing and downloading RoomKey and that security level, is just to kind of give a bit of an overview of some things that we like to highlight with regards to interfaces and payment processing. So starting with RoomKey PMS integrations, these are proprietary software that is managed by RoomKey that we can help you set up and manage from the training and support side. One of our most popular integrations, RoomKeyPMS Payments, powered by Full Steam. This is our fully embedded payment processor software. You do need to have a merchant ID. We can help you find that information. We do have those details within RoomKey. The nice thing with our embedded payment processor is that it relies on single sign-on access using your existing RoomKey PMS clerk ID and login. So you don't need to maintain a separate portal, login, or password. It's all contained within your clerk ID using RoomKey. For more information about our payment processor, single sign-on access, portal access, as well as reconciliation tools, we do have a great webinar available on our support website. It's called RoomKey PMS Payments, and it goes over all of the details of using that integration with RoomKey. The next thing that we have is our eRes booking engine. This allows you to manage guest room images, descriptions, and booking policies, allowing direct bookings from your hotel website directly into RoomKey. We have a webinar, of course, that goes over all the details of creating and managing your eRes booking engine and tools there. You may use a third-party website or channel manager for your booking engine, something maybe off of SiteMinder or through the TravelClick integration of software solutions there. If you're using any third party, this would not be integrated with the eRes booking engine. So this would be a separate entity if you are not already using one of those third party vendors. Lastly, I did mention a little bit earlier that we do have an owner's accounting or HOA component for any properties that are managing owned unit revenue and expenses. This also allows you to manage owner profiles and statements. For those owners where you're splitting revenue with the unit owners. We have a full webinar. Actually, we have back-to-back webinars about how to manage the HOA setup and the monthly statements for those owners on that owner's accounting platform. Now, just a couple of things about these, about third-party interfaces. Now, these are those third-party vendors that are outside of the realm of RoomKey. We had a bit of a visual representation of those at the beginning of the presentation today. I do want to just kind of bring up that example checklist once again. So if you are using any third-party interfaces, if it's a credit card interface like Shift4, you want to make sure that you have access or you are aware of the merchant ID. You'll also need to have access to the merchant portal. Shift4, I believe, uses Lighthouse Transaction Managers, formerly called Dollars on the Net. So you need to have a login name and password for that third-party interface for credit card processing. If you're using any GDS management tools or direct connects through Expedia or Booking.com, you do need to have that portal login and password, as well as any revenue managers. You want to have that portal login and password, and of course, any CRM, customer or reputation management systems. We do not do any training on how to manage these services on their portal. You will need to go to the third-party vendor. So for example, if you need to know how to create a new room type on SiteMinder platform, you will need to go directly to SiteMinder for that type of training and resources for how to manage those services on that platform. But at RoomKey, we will help you with the integration, and in the event of a GDS or revenue manager, we do help you with the rate mapping and tools like that. So we've touched a little bit about the third-party vendors. Next, I wanted to talk about the room types and inventory. So when you're taking ownership of an existing database, you may want to do an overview of the different room types, room numbers, number of rooms in each room type, things like that. We don't recommend doing too much change unless you have a clear plan in mind. But if you are looking to just update some of your room types or inventory information, this will give you a bit of an overview of where to start and where to find that information. So the first thing that we're going to look at is how to add a new room type. We have a couple of steps that we recommend, especially when you're working with any third-party vendors outside of RoomKey. So you're going to actually start with any third-party vendors first. Their platform is step number one. You're going to add the new room type and code and description, any policy information directly to your GDS and RMS portals. So you need to do that step first on the third-party portal. You may have to do that across a couple of portals first. So if you do have a GDS channel manager and you also have a revenue management system like Duetto or Ideas, you'll want to add the new room type to both of those platforms first. Step number two is to now add the new room type and use the rate wizard in RoomKey to add rate pricing. So step number two, I have a little video here that's going to take you through those steps and demonstrate how to do that in RoomKey. So from RoomKey, you're going to start from the system configuration menu and go directly to room inventory. It's going to open up the room inventory module on screen where it shows a list of all of the different room types, room codes, and descriptions. On the right-hand side, you can click Add. and you can add a new room type. In this example, I have a room type code PH. I have a maximum occupancy of 6 persons. The short type description is penthouse, and I have a full description of the room. And I've also added the sort order. This is going to be sort order number 6, and you just click OK on the right-hand side. Once you do that, you will now see the new room type added here in the list of active room types. Now, the next thing that I need to do is add this room type to rate plans. So I'm going to exit out and go back to system configuration. This time I'll select Rate Wizard. I'm going to start with the best available rate and click the Edit button, the pen and paper symbol in the bottom left corner. Here you'll notice that the distribution channels have an asterisk next to them. If you click the More Details button, that will show you that you've added that new penthouse room type, and we need to make sure that this room type is now available for each of those distribution channels. Once you do that, you just click the Update button. Now I need to add pricing. So then price for the penthouse room type, I click the Next button in the bottom right corner. In this rate grid, you will now see the new room type appear in the rate grid. And if I look at the rate calendar down below, I'll just make sure I'm looking at the penthouse room type, you'll see that our rate calendar shows that I have no rate set up. So I need to make sure that I'm loading a rate price for this new room type for the best available rate. Now, I only want to add a pricing for the penthouse, so I'm going to click Lock the Grid and remove the check marks from the other room types, so I'm only going to be changing pricing for the penthouse room type. Now, if your property does use this rate grid for incremental rate increases, you can add those increments and click Update Rate Template. I'm going to use the base rate row at the top here just to add in my base rate, which was $250. And you'll notice that it adds that extra increment for my penthouse room type, bringing it up to $500. Next, I'll use the date from and date to select the date range that I want to apply this pricing through to the end of 2025, and I'll click Update Rate Amounts. Now I can click the Save button. RoomKey is going to confirm that I want to update the rate amounts, and it's also going to confirm that I want to update that tiered rates. I clicked yes in both of those cases, and now when I look at the rate calendar down below, I can see for my penthouse room type, I now have those prices loaded throughout the next several months through the end of the year. Once you've added that pricing, you can return to the main page here. The last thing to do is check that this pricing now appears. So I'm just going to do a simple reservation. I'm just going to click New Res, and let me just bring this into view here. You should now see the penthouse or the new room type available, and you should now see that best available rate populating for that new room type. Now, the one thing that I did not show there, I just showed that setup for the best available rate plan, but you will need to repeat that process in the rate wizard for each rate plan that applies to that new room type. So you'll just repeat those steps in the rate wizard, making sure that you add the new room type to the distribution channel and add the new room type pricing for each new rate. Once you have set up that information in RoomKey, step number 2 is to complete the mapping in RoomKey. We do have a full webinar presentation that talks about how to do third-party rate mapping, depending on the type of third-party vendor that you're connecting to, whether you're connecting to something like SiteMinder or a channel manager using GDS linking, or if you're using one of our enhanced integrations with TravelClick, iHotelier, or Synexis. Or we do also have the option, if you're not comfortable doing your own rate mapping quite yet, you can contact our support team. We can do that rate mapping for you. So adding a new room type has several steps that are involved there. I do want to also make note that we do have different processes if you are deactivating or changing your room types. We'll take a look at those next as well. So if you're deactivating a room type, we have a couple of steps that we recommend you be mindful of, especially whenever you're working with those third-party vendors. Step number one is to deactivate the room type on your GDS and RMS portals first. Step number two here is going through and deactivating the room type in RoomKey. When you do these two steps, you will automatically deactivate the rate mapping as well. So that's why when we're deactivating, there's only two steps instead of the full three. So I have a little video here that's going to show how to deactivate room types in RoomKey. You're going to start from System Configuration and go directly to the Room Inventory tab. From this list of active room types, you'll scroll down and find the room type that you need to deactivate. Now, before you make this an inactive room type, I do recommend you click this Rooms tab. Take a look at that room and make sure that there are no room numbers. If you do want to deactivate that room number, 501, otherwise, you want to make sure that there's no inventory here before you deactivate a room type. So now that I've confirmed there's no inventory, I'll click the Modify button. I'm going to Set to Inactive and click Post. That will remove that penthouse room type from this list of active room types, but I can go over to the right-hand side, select Inactive, and I'll be able to see that inactive room type there. I can modify and reactivate that room type if needed, but let's leave it inactive here. Great. So when it comes to talking about inventory, what we use to manage inventory in RoomKey are the room numbers designated to each room type. So I have a video here that's going to show you how to add or change room numbers and therefore affect the different inventory for each of your room types. So you're going to start from System Configuration and this time select Room Numbers. So it'll open up on screen, and in order to change your inventory, you're going to do that per room type. So I'm just going to select the penthouse room type we had there, and you'd click the Add button on the right-hand side. Now you can add a new room number like 601 here if you're adding new inventory, brand new room numbers. Or the other more likely scenario is that you'll be taking a room number from an existing room type like the EKS here, clicking Modify, and you're going to change that room number to the penthouse, or sorry, that room type to the penthouse, and click OK. So you'll see that that room number 501 now disappears from my list here. And if I go back over to my penthouse room type, you can see that that room 501 is now categorized as a penthouse room type. Now this does have an effect on your room inventory numbers, so I'm just going to show you what that looks like here. If you go to the Operations menu, go to Inventory Calendar or F12 on your keyboard. That's going to open up your inventory calendar and you'll now see your updated inventory numbers, including this one that's been added to the penthouse room type. Any changes to your inventory, because if they are connected to your third-party interfaces, those will also update once you make the change in RoomKey. Now let's take a look at transaction codes and accounts, general ledger information. We're actually going to start with transaction codes and how to make these changes so that they correspond with changes to your accounting software. So step number one is to add or change a transaction code in your accounting software first. This may not be applicable with some types of accounting software, or if your accounting software does not require transaction code information, you can actually skip step number one and go directly to step number two. Here I have a short video that'll show you how to add or change a transaction code in RoomKey. So you're going to start from System Configuration and go directly to Transaction Codes. This transaction code area is going to allow you to manage your room charge codes. Most of the time when you're adding a new charge code, you're going to select Other Charge. This is where the majority of your charge codes should be created. You'll click the Add button, and you can add a code and description for this new transaction and click OK. RoomKey is going to remind you that you need to attach a GL account and make the account code active. So with this code selected, I'll click the Accounts tab, click the Insert button, and I'm going to attach a account. So I'm just going to use miscellaneous in this example and select OK. Now that the account is attached, I can now activate this code on the General tab by clicking Modify and placing a check mark into the active checkbox and click OK. Now that damage fee transaction code is now available to use. I'm just going to find an example here. I'm just going to close the transaction codes menu and I'm going to go to one of our reservations here and click Post Charges. I should now be able to find my damage fee in this list of codes, and you'll see that the reference information populates with the damage fee details there. Now, if you're changing a transaction code, you'll start in much the same way. You'll go directly to System Configuration and select Transaction Codes. You want to make sure you're looking at Other Charge. This is where most of your transaction codes live. Let me go directly to Damage Fee here, and you can click the Modify button. Now you can change things like the code itself, so I might just update the code. I might call this a damage charge instead of damage fee. Any of those details I can change right away and click OK. Some other things that you can update here is add or remove taxes, using the Taxes tab to add or remove taxes there, and click Post in order to save your changes. You can also set a fixed amount for a charge. So for example, I'll insert a damage fee base rate or base fixed amount of $200 and select OK. The other thing that you can do using these modify functions is the ability to deactivate a transaction code. So this is an active transaction code, but if I go back to the General tab, click Modify, I can remove that active checkbox and click OK. Now that damage charge is still within this list and it maintains any reporting associated with that code. But if I click Post Charges, you'll see that that damage code is no longer available to use for new charges. So I wouldn't be able to post anything new to that deactivated or inactive transaction code. The next thing that we'll look at is how to change tax codes. Once again, if you are using any accounting interfacing, we want to make sure that you are adding or changing your tax code information on your accounting software platform first. And that may not be applicable for certain types of accounting software. If you don't have accounting export, or if you're not tracking tax code information on that platform, you can skip number 1 and go directly to step number 2 to add or change the tax code directly in RoomKey. I have a little video here that's going to show us how to do that. So we'll go to System Configuration, select Transaction Codes. When this module opens up, you'll click the Taxes tab in the top left corner. This will show you a list of all of your taxes. You can click Add, and I'm just going to add in a miscellaneous tax for 2%. You want to make sure that it is a percentage and click Post. This will just remind me that I need to add an account. So I'll click Insert and add just the miscellaneous account for accounting purposes here. Now this tax is ready to use. If you are changing a tax, for example, here I'll change the room tax. I'm going to rename this occupancy tax, and it's going to be at a 13% rate instead of 15%. So I've just updated the description and click Post. But one thing that you need to note is that if you're changing the rate, you need to do that on the Tax Rates tab. And you'll notice that when you click Insert, you can insert a new rate. So this is going to change to 13%, but you have a date from. And you'll notice that you are not able to change the tax rate as of today or any past dates. You must select a future date. So if you have any changes in your tax rates, you must plan to do this in advance of the change taking place. So in this case, that tax rate is going to take place on April 1st. So I'm planning ahead anytime that I need to make changes to my tax code rates. If you're just changing the name, that's no problem. That can be done the day of. But if it's a change in the rate or percentage, it does need to be done in advance, at least 24 hours in advance, in order to take effect on that future date in RoomKey. Last thing that we're going to take a look at here in transaction codes and accounts is how to change a GL account. Once again, you're going to start from your accounting software platform. You want to make the change to the account ID in that platform first. And then step number two is to add or change the account ID in RoomKey. And I have a little video here that's going to show us how to do that as well. So in RoomKey, you're going to start with system configuration and select transaction codes. When the module opens up, you'll select GL accounts. And on the right-hand side, you can click Add to add a new GL account. It must have an account identifier and an account name. Make sure that it is active but not receivable. If you are changing the account ID, you can select the account, click Modify, and in the account identifier, this is where you will add the account ID. So for example, City Ledger, I've just updated that with a numerical ID. Um, there are no restrictions on what you use as the account identifier. It must match what you have set up on your accounting platform in order to synchronize with that accounting export or that accounting interface there. So I showed the example there of changing the account identifier to a numerical code that uses a dash. That's the most common one that I see used with software like M3 and QuickBooks. So just be mindful that you know of what your account ID or account identifier is on your accounting software or platform first, and then you can update that information, step number two, in RoomKey. Okay, fantastic. So we've gone through a lot of information with regards to managing different types of changes. That could be an ownership change, inventory, accounting, and all different levels of security that could be affected and interfacing that can be affected with those types of changes. If you feel that this is overwhelming or if you need some help as you make these changes and manage this structure in your own database, please contact our inside sales team. Once again, you can reach them via email, insidesales@roomkeypms.com. They'll be happy to help suss out what needs to be done or where you're starting from, and also contract our training team to be able to give that one-on-one assistance so you feel confident moving forward with the changes that you've made or the changes that are required with your database. Open up the floor now and see if there's any questions with regards to the topics we've looked at today. So I don't see any questions or chat here. I'm just going to leave the floor open for a little while longer. If you do have any questions, feel free to enter that information into the Q&A or chat. We'll be able to answer those. Otherwise, you are free to log off. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. We'll just see here. We'll just leave this open for a little while longer. Okay, it does look like we have a couple of people dropping off. We have no outstanding chats or questions. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up our presentation for today. Once again, thank you so much for joining in. I do appreciate any feedback you have. You can use the webinar survey to suggest topics for next month or upcoming webinar presentations. Yeah, we'll see you again next one. Thank you so much, everyone. Bye-bye.